Hello and welcome to the Presbytery of the Peaks Zoom training video. My name is Pastor Dave Baker and I am a member of the Presbytery of the Peaks with a bivocational ministry that helps churches and small businesses with technology. I'm joined by Elder Denny Casey of First Martinsville. He's also a Zoom expert. We've been asked to help guide the Presbytery through its very first Zoom Presbytery meeting, which is going to be held on June 13th at 9:30 a.m. So this is a training video to walk you through how to use Zoom and also how we're going to use this new technology to have a full Robert's Rules compatible presbytery meeting and what we'll need to do in order to adjust this technology to that end. So the first thing that we're going to do is walk you through how to actually use the Zoom technology. So if you're unfamiliar with it, Zoom is a video conferencing software that will allow you to join by phone or by a computer device. So the first thing that you need to do in order to use Zoom is decide how you're going to join the meeting. If you would like to join the meeting by phone, that is just a regular phone, what you're going to need is your phone number, which you will present to the presbytery on the registration form. We need to have that number to recognize you when you join the meeting, but you'll need to know what number you're dialing in from. You'll also need to know the number that you're dialing to. That information will be in the invitation, and what you see on the screen right here is the standard Zoom invitation. But you'll get this information from the presbytery, a number to dial in. You'll also need the meeting ID of the presbytery meeting and the password. So you'll call in to this number. You'll be prompted to enter in your meeting ID, followed by the pound sign, of course, just like any phone conferencing. You'll then be asked to add a participant ID, which you don't have. You'll just hit pound again. Then you'll be asked to enter in the password, which you will have, and you'll hit pound again. You will join the meeting muted, and if you need to unmute yourself, that is to say, Denny and I can unmute you when you are given the floor, or if you have an interrupting motion, you can hit *6. If you need to raise your hand on the phone, you hit *9. I'll go over that again, but you do want to write those two commands down, *6 and *9. *6 to unmute, *9 to raise your hand. Now, if you are going to join from a device, that is to say your smartphone via the Zoom app or a laptop or desktop, those are my preferred methods. If you do join by a desktop, you do need a webcam, of course. You first should go to zoom.us/test in order to test your device to see whether or not everything is working correctly. So this is what that website looks like. When you have decided what device you want to use, just go to this address, click on join, and you'll be given either a prompt to download Zoom for the first time, or you will be given a prompt to open the Zoom meeting, and that will allow you to test whether or not your audiovisual stuff is working prior to the meeting and even prior to the practice session. So that's really the first thing that you want to do, is decide what device you're going to use and then test it. The next thing is you're going to want to look at the invitation. So if you are given an invitation, that is, once you're given an invitation, if you're joining by a device, you need this meeting link. So all you're going to do is just click the link, and you'll be taken to basically the very same page, or it looks like the same page as the test. And you'll follow the same process. You will click Open Zoom Meetings, but instead of taking you to just a test area, it will take you to the actual meeting. If it's your first time, you will have to give it your name and tell it how you want to join. We're going to join using audio here. And once you've joined, you're going to see a screen like this, hopefully, with a lot of other people on the call, unless you're the first one. And you're going to want to rename your own video. So I don't have the video started yet, so I'm going to go ahead and start my video. And then you can see over here on the right, we've got a view of the people who are on the Zoom chat. So what we're going to do first is make sure that we are named correctly. So you can see that I'm showing up as Peaks Presbytery. That's not going to be my name tag. So this is sort of our virtual name tag for the Presbytery meeting, and you want to put who you are and your role and what church you're from. So for me, that's going to be Reverend David Baker, and that information is right here on the screen. Reverend David Baker of Williamson Memorial Presbyterian Church. So you'll go ahead and rename yourself. If you're joining by phone, we'll rename you. That's why we need to have the number that you're calling in from. But you can see my name changes right here when I do that. Now the next thing to note is tech support, and this should be available for you on the actual call on the meeting, but you need to have the information beforehand in case you're unable to join. So please note this info and write it down, and I'd like to turn this section of the meeting, or a section of the training video, over to Denny Casey, who's going to be our tech support person. Denny?
Good morning. Just like to point out, please contact me if there's any issues that you run into, technical issues. I'll be glad to help you, and I will be helping those in order that I receive them. Please feel free to call me or text me at the number that you see there, 276-224-3906, and I will do my best to help you with that, whatever technical issues that you have. And I would emphasize to call ahead, try to connect ahead, test your connection, test your audio and video settings and so forth with the zoom.us/test URL. And if you have any trouble, please feel free to call me and text me, and my email address is on there as well, and I will be monitoring all three of those. So please let me know how I can help, and I hope everything works out well for you.
Thanks, Denny. And I do want to just reiterate that it is important to show up early to the actual meeting as well, because there might be 10 other folks that have tech issues, and we only have one tech support person. So it's really important to show up at 9 a.m. or 9:15 a.m., not right at 9:30 on Saturday, June 13th. So thanks again so much, Denny, for being willing to help out in that way. And of course, if you do have problems with the testing, feel free to contact Denny as well. So the actual meeting, once we have successfully gotten you inside the meeting and you've joined, what do we do then? You'll join muted, and you're going to stay muted during the meeting unless you've got the floor or unless you have an interrupting motion, a motion that needs immediate attention. So generally speaking, the way that you will get the floor or get attention if you need the floor and you need to let the chair know that, is you'll raise your hand. The way that you raise your hand on the phone is by hitting *9, and the chair as well as Denny and I will see that, and we'll make sure that you are given the floor or given some consideration. If you're not given the floor, then you can unmute yourself briefly. You can unmute yourself on the actual computer by holding your space bar down. You can also unmute yourself by hitting *6 on the phone. Now, to actually proceed in the meeting, I do think it's important that you read the rules. The rules will be coming out prior to the actual meeting, and you'll have a couple weeks probably, or at least a week, to read these and get an understanding of them prior to the meeting. So I highly recommend that you do that. I am going to go through just a very brief summary of how these rules are applied, but this is the detailed version of what we're going through in this video, so it is really important that you go ahead and read these prior to the meeting. Now, as far as how we're actually going to be voting, most votes will first go through an attempt of unanimous consent. Now, unanimous consent, of course, means does no one object to us passing this motion? And if everyone is okay with the motion as it stands, then the motion is passed by consent. If you would like the presbytery to vote on that motion not by consent, then what you would do is you would raise your hand. Now, the way that you raise your hand is you want to click on participants and then click on raise hand. You should be able to see the raise hand icon. You can see Denny just raised his hand. I raised my hand. So the host will be able to see that, and they'll recognize you when you raise your hand. Or in this case, they will withdraw unanimous consent as an option, and we'll proceed to actual voting. Now, the way that we'll actually vote is also by raising our hands. So the chair will say, all in favor of raising your hand, all in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. And everyone will raise their hands. The chair will scan to see about how many people have raised their hands or not, and then they will lower all of the hands. So that's something that the chair is able to do, is just go through and lower everybody's hands. So don't lower your own hand. Let us do that for you. And then the chair will say, okay, all opposed, please raise your hand. And at that point, assuming that you didn't vote yes, you could raise your hand to vote no. And in a simple division, what we're doing is just looking and getting an approximate idea of how many people are for or are against. If we are going to have a full count, a full vote count, we will also use raising our hands, but we're going to actually count everything. And it's very important that you don't lower your own hand unless you intend not to vote. So we'll lower your hand for you once we've counted your vote, and once all the counting is done, then all the hands will be lowered. Now, another thing to note with this interface, the participants interface, is that if you have an interrupting motion, that is to say, a motion about privilege or a question, then you can use the no icon like that to indicate that you would like to have priority with the motion that you've got, and the chair will recognize you to see exactly what your motion is about and if it's in order. So if you're not recognized immediately, or if you're on the phone, can unmute yourself using *6 or the space bar if you're not recognized in what you consider to be a timely enough fashion. That is in order. So the last thing that I would mention is if you're making a motion yourself, like a new you've been given the floor by the chair and you're making a new motion, which is not something that you can do at a called meeting, but in the future that might be something that we do. You're going to want to actually enter that motion into the chat. So there is a chat feature in Zoom, and you can message individual people or just the whole presbytery. But we would ask that you not use this feature in order to try to get anyone's attention, because we'll probably miss it. If someone is talking or speaking, they're not going to see this. Denny's not going to see this if you're trying to contact him via tech support. Please use this mostly just for entering motions, actual motions that everybody can see, and at that point we'll direct everyone's attention to the chat feature, the chat box. So that's it. That's how to use Zoom. If you've got more questions, please do remember to come to that practice session, which is going to be the Tuesday before the Presbytery meeting, 9:30 a.m., Tuesday, June 9th. There will be a link sent out for that meeting as well. And that's going to be a chance for us to run through all the bugs, make sure everything works, and answer any questions that you might have. Denny and I will both be there to help you out. So again, thanks for watching this video. I would finally say please do remember that on this meeting, it's very easy to get distracted and look at other things because you might have the internet in front of you, you might have things going on in the background, your cat distracting you. But this is a meeting of the Presbytery. We're here to do the business of the church, the business of the Lord, and it does require our attention. So please do try to limit multitasking. Well, thank you again so much for your time. God bless, and we'll see you virtually in June.